Hi everybody, I'm Lisa Walsh-Kemmis and I work with Fran and Eddie in the entitlement section in the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine. So I'm just going to take you through the entitlements and more specifically the transfer of entitlements and unused entitlements. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the ag food and entitlement related information, a little bit about usage and unduly allocated entitlements, and then move on to the main body of it, which is the transfer of entitlements. So all applications for the transfer of entitlements will be made on INET again, so that's through your ag food login, or if you use an advisor, then your advisor will log in and do that through ag food for you. The transfer of entitlements is open for applications today, so as of today you'll be able to put in any transfer applications that you have. It's not open for absolutely every category yet. There are still some, same as the BISS applications, where it's not open yet. They will be available shortly. You can also view your entitlements position online. That I will show you a screen shortly as to where to see that. And the other main thing to note this year is if you are using an advisor to carry out a transfer for you, then there is a change to the witness on the transfer or confirmation signature form, and the agents will no longer be able to witness that. I'll go into more detail in that shortly. So for those of you, if you do log into your own ag food or your advisor hasn't been able to see your entitlements, there are situations where entitlements information will not be available to view online just at the moment. So if there's any unprocessed entitlement related applications, there's very few of those left, so that shouldn't affect too many people. If there's an expired hard number, if there's been a change of ownership, or if the entitlements are under review by the department. So if you're unable to see your entitlements position, you may fall into one of the categories if you want to give it maybe another week if you have that time, or if not, you can check on. One thing to say is that unless you've had leases reverting at the end of 2022, or if you're partaking in transfers, then your entitlements that you finish 2022 with will be what you start 2023 with. So if you finished with 20 owned entitlements at the end of 2022, you will be going into 2023 with the same number. So the statement of entitlements, as Fran said, it will be available shortly through your ag food account. That will be online only. They are not posted out, so you'll be able to see that in your correspondence when you log in. So when you go onto your login screen, the bit down the bottom here where the red arrow is, that's where you can view your entitlements. And if you click on that, then this is the view you'll get there with the details of the entitlements. So as I say, you should be able to see that now, as long as you're not in one of the excluded categories. So moving on to usage and unduly allocated entitlements. The usage of entitlements is where you don't have enough land to activate all of your entitlements. So entitlements are activated by declaring 1 eligible hectare of land for each entitlement. So all entitlements allocated under BISS and National Reserve are subject to a 2-year usage rule. So if you don't use it in 2023 and you don't use them all in 2024, then any unused entitlements will be lost from 2024. Because this is a new scheme starting in 2023, there's no carryover from 2022. So if you were in if you had unused entitlements in 2022, you'll be starting again in year 1 in 2023. No, you won't be losing them in 2023. So if an entitlement is unused for 2 consecutive years, then the lowest value entitlements are those which revert to the National Reserve in the 2nd year of non-use. So it doesn't matter whether they're owned entitlements or whether you've leased them in, you can't choose. Farmers, it will always be the lowest value entitlements. So it's one thing to watch if you're leasing out entitlements to be aware of the usage position of the lessee. So to avoid any loss of your own entitlements, you should check your entitlement usage position on agfood.ie. You should make sure you've got sufficient land in 2023 to use all your entitlements. And if you don't have enough land, then you can either apply to transfer excess entitlements, or you can lease or buy in extra land. As I say, just to reiterate, there will be no loss through usage in 2023, so it's not quite as important this year. So on to unduly allocated entitlements. The EU regulations provide that any payment entitlements which have been unduly allocated to a farmer may be recovered and allocated to the National Reserve. This occurs if land has been reduced since the establishment of the entitlements, and that the area that is reduced is applicable to the 2015 scheme year. So it would be where, for example, an inspection was carried out and it was found that there was an ancient monument taking up a large portion of a field or something like that, and that area had been claimed, or if it was found to be out in the sea or something like that. So where such payment entitlements have been transferred to another farmer, that transferee must give those entitlements back to the National Reserve as well. Farmers will have the option to appeal it, and unduly allocated entitlements are removed to the National Reserve in the year of finding. So a payment penalty might apply for previous years. There should be very few of these from 2023 onwards, as they're finishing off the 2015 the entitlements checks, which go back to 2015. They can only go back 4 years. So as we move forward into 2023, 2016 will be the year of finding. So there would be very few of those, but there may still be one or two. So we're just making sure people are aware of it. So on to the transfer of entitlements. If you are wanting to do a transfer of entitlements for 2023, again, as with previous years, you must apply online. You can do this using your own agfood.ie login, or you can use a FOSS approved advisor to carry this out for you. As Fran touched on, there is no clawback on the sale of entitlements without land for 2023 or 2024. So any sale of entitlements up to now, there was a 20% clawback if you sold entitlements without land. There's an amnesty on that for the 2 years. It is fully expected that in 2025 onwards, that clawback will go back on. So it's just a 2-year hold on those clawback. If you had leased out entitlements up to now and they were reverting at the end of the 2022 scheme year, then a letter should have issued to you on the 11th of January. Those letters go out to the transferors and transferees, and they just let them know that the leases have reverted and remind you just to submit an online application of transfer of entitlements if you still require that. So just one thing to be very careful with: if you have a company and you're leasing to your own company, just make sure that you check to see where the entitlements are sitting, because it will still show up under your hard number. Also, something to be very careful of is if you have a long-term lease in place, so say you have a 5-year lease or a 10-year lease, just be aware of when that is due to finish. It catches some people out. So another reason you might need a transfer of entitlements: each time the registration details of a hard number change, a new entitlement ID number, an EOID, is created, and that automatically has 0 entitlements until there's a transfer done. So you would need to put in a transfer application to submit to move those entitlements to the new EOID. If the PPSN number remains the same, so for example, there's an amendment to a name on marriage, or somebody amends their name to the Irish spelling or something like that, the EOID should remain the same, so no transfer is required. It is worth just double checking that that's the case. So examples of where transfer of entitlements is needed would be adding a name, removing a name, forming or dissolving a company, or where you've got mergers of parents. So entitlements can also be moved between different herd numbers. The movement of entitlements, whether it's temporary or permanent, will involve a transferor, which is the herd owner giving the entitlements, to the transferee, which is the herd owner receiving those entitlements. For all transfer types, an online transfer of entitlement application must be fully submitted by both the transferor and the transferee, along with any required documents. So the way this works, if you're doing it yourself, is you would log on as the transferor. You put in the details, the number of entitlements, the value of the entitlements, and you put in the transferee details. The system will then give you a transfer key, which you pass on to the transferee, and only once they've used that key to go into the system, accept the transfer, and submit it, it's only then that it is fully submitted. So both parties have to complete everything before it is counted as a submitted application, and that has to all be done before the closing date. Where an application is submitted by an agent, the transferor must complete a transferor confirmation signature form. This is to safeguard the clients and just make sure that they are aware of what they are doing, make sure they are happy to do that. So basically what you will need to do is this will need to be a witnessed signature. Up to now, the agents have witnessed this. We've had to make a change to that process and bring in independent authorised witnesses. So you'll be able to use Peace Commissioner, Commissioner for Oaths, or Solicitor. We'll also accept witnessing of this form by a member of An Garda Síochána, or if, as is in the case of some executor cases, an equivalent police force if the person signing is based outside of Ireland. This is not required for if you are getting your agent to transfer entitlements using an entitlement transfer facilitator. The agent can still witness that because they are an independent witness, as the transfer will be being put up by the ETF. So as there has been up to now, there are 8 different methods of transfer for 2023. There is a lease, a sale, a gift or anticipated inheritance, a merger, which is unregistered partnership, division of a holding, the change of legal entity, which is where there's a company formation or dissolution of company, or a change of registration details. This is adding or removing a name from the herd number, but the original herd owner's name must remain on that. So you can't use it to change the herd number to another name. That would have to be done through inheritance, gift, lease, or sale, however you want to do it. It's only if you're adding a name. Say you're going from Johnny to Johnny and Mary. If you are making a change to your herd number, the start and end date of a herd number is extremely important where it comes to the closing dates of the scheme. So it's also very important to let any advisors, if you use an advisor, know if you've applied to the DVO to make any changes to your herd number for whatever reason. And you must let them know that before they submit anything on your behalf for either the BISS application or a transfer application. If you are getting the DVO to make changes, make a note of the ER1 application date, that'll be the start date, which is used for your herd number, and retain proof of that ER1 application. You can also use the system to check your herd number status, whether it's expired, dormant, or if it's been end dated. If that's the case, then you probably won't be able to see your entitlement position. If you have applied to change any details on your herd number and they've not yet been made, but the application has been submitted, you can put in a BISS application or a transfer application, but you should use a temporary reference number, which your agent can either sort out for you, or you can attend one of the department clinics, or call into us in Portlaoise and we can sort you out with a transfer reference number, a temporary reference number. Something to be very aware of, if at all possible, you should avoid making changes to your herd number between the date of submission of your BISS application and the 14th of June 2023. If this is unavoidable, you will have to submit an online 2023 transfer of entitlements form, and you also will need to submit a 2023 transfer of entire holding form. If you complete these forms, it will allow the transferee to get paid for 23, and the entitlements will then automatically transfer into their account for 2024. This is only possible if the herd number changes ownership after this form has been submitted and on or before the 14th of June 2023. If the herd number changes after the 14th of June 23, we are not able to do a transfer for the 2023 scheme. The 2023 BISS applicant is paid, and you'll have to make an application in 2024 to change those, transfer those entitlements over. So If you are acting as an executor on behalf of a deceased, or if you're using an expired herd number, if there is a deceased person that has an agent who has online access for them, that agent will be able to act on behalf of the reps of. So if you know who the agent is, then you can make contact with them and they will be able to deal with it through the reps of. And the transfer confirmation form will be signed by the authorised person. So for example, the executor of the estate. If the deceased had no agent before, or if there's a new agent in their place, the reps of the deceased will need to contact an agent or call to the Department of Agriculture Portlaoise office to facilitate that transfer of entitlements. And if you fall into that category, the best thing to do is to contact us using the email address on screen. So if you have an expired herd number, so that would generally be a herd owner who is no longer actively farming but still holds entitlements, so they don't submit a BISS application, but they trade their entitlements every year. They will also have to be registered for an online account in order to transfer their applications. They can use an agent to act online on their behalf, and they can also go into their online account and nominate an entitlement transfer facilitator to trade those entitlements, or they can get their agent to use an ETF either. If you have applied for a transfer, you'll be able to see the status of your transfer application through your AgFood account. If you receive any correspondence from us, or when your application has been fully submitted, there will be a notification issued via text to the farmer. So if you are able to check that your phone number that DAFM holds for you is correct, it will keep you fully informed of any updates to your application. Letters advising of successful transfers, lease reversion and change of ownership are all online only, so you'll find those on your AgFood account. Other transfer of entitlement letters, so for example, if we're looking at for further information, they will continue to issue in hard copy. We also issue hard copy forms in all reps of cases and inheritance cases, because we're fully aware that the online address may not be accessible. So on to partnerships. Transfer of entitlements involving registered single herd partnerships, they're just processed in exactly the same way as an individual herd number transfer application. So you would go in through your online transfer. There's only one herd involved, so you would just go into your herd number and apply through it that way. A registered multi-herd partnership, where there is more than one herd number registered in that partnership, they're treated slightly differently. So if you are going into a partnership, you do not need to change your herd number into a joint venture in order to form a registered multi-herd partnership. Applications to form a multi-herd partnership, if you were wanting to form it for the 2023 scheme year, the closing date for that was the 10th of February. So if you didn't get your application in by that date, you will have to wait until the 2024 year to be able to join that multi-herd partnership. You don't need to do a transfer of entitlements to form or dissolve a multi-herd partnership, but in order to transfer entitlements into or out of that partnership, you must indicate which individual herd number within that partnership the entitlements are to be transferred into or taken from. This is required as the land can be listed under each of the herd numbers on the BISS application in the multi-herd partnership, and the land and entitlements under that herd need to correspond in order for the herd owners to get paid the full value of entitlements held. So care should be taken to ensure that the number of entitlements under each of the herds in the partnership will be matched by the land under the herd number after the transfer is completed. So if you're in a multi-herd partnership and you're doing it yourself, you will go in onto the partnership number, and then there'll be a choice, then you can pick which of the herd numbers within that you are doing the transfer into or out of. So it's very careful to that. And also, if you change the land on the BISS applications, say for example, if in 2023 you're configuring the land slightly differently between the two partners within that partnership, you will need to make sure that any corresponding transfer of entitlements is carried out to make sure that you each have the required amount of eligible hectares to use all of your entitlements and get paid on them. So there's a few sort of pitfalls that we find that people make, sort of regular things which either delay their applications or mean that they don't get submitted at all. So believe it or not, one of the most common mistakes is a failure to apply for a transfer of entitlements, particularly we find with companies, or if there's a change to, if there's a lease reverted, a long-term lease reverted. So just make sure that if you do think you might need to do a transfer of entitlements, make sure you apply, make sure both parts are put in, transferor and transferee, and make sure it's done before the closing date. The transfer confirmation signature form or the ETF authorization form not being fully completed or not being submitted, this will not prevent the application, you know, it will not cause the application to be refused, but it will delay the processing of it and may delay payments. A failure to include additional information. So, for example, a transfer involving a company, we need to have information regarding the constitution, which must list the directors or secretary of the company. Again, it's more likely to delay an application rather than lead to a refusal. Failure to include accurate additional information. An indemnity on transferring entitlements is often used in REPSOF cases. So it needs to be witnessed by a solicitor, so it's just something to be aware of. Failure to accept the transfer by the transferee, again, it's a two-step process. Both parts need to be completed before that application comes across to our systems. So just make sure that both parts are done before the closing date. If someone is registered as a herd keeper rather than a herd owner, this is not enough to receive entitlements by way of transfer. You have to be a registered herd owner or hold a BISS transfer number, which is used in the case of inheritance or gift and anticipated inheritance of entitlements. You can't be registered as a herd keeper. You can submit an application using a temporary reference number, as I said earlier. One error which can cause a problem for the system and therefore delay payments is where two applications are submitted. So if you have an application submitted under a temporary reference number and you then get your herd number, rather than submitting another application under that herd number, if you send us an email asking us to link the temporary reference number with that herd number, that will be sufficient. It will be the quickest way to get it all linked up for you. Failure to do a scission back to the original herds, so a division of the holding, when a non-registered partnership is dissolved. The entitlements will remain with that merged herd until the application is put in to dissolve them. Should also, as I said already, take care if you have a long-term lease that lease has not ended and the entitlements reverted, especially if it's leasing into your own company, because you may not notice it because the company generally will have the same herd number, just a different entitlement ID number. Submitting an application using your herd number after you've applied to the DVO to make changes to that herd number. As I said earlier, it's just worth reminding you, use a temporary reference number if you've already put in an application to the DVO to make any changes to that herd number. It just saves an awful lot of complications. We can link it to the new EOID once you get given, once those changes have taken place. And also, if you apply using a TRN number, make sure to get your agent to tell us as soon as you get your herd number. We have a number of unlinked TRNs at the moment still awaiting linkages. So if we don't get told, the system doesn't tell us automatically. So moving on to entitlement transfer facilitators, these are generally auctioneers or solicitors who are registered with the department and authorised to conduct an online transfer application transactions for their clients. So you can use an ETF to organise a transfer of entitlements for you. They can't submit any other type of application for you to the department, so they can't do your BISS application or anything like that, just the transfer. In order to select an ETF, the farmer or the agent will need to log in using their own single sign-on login. So you can do this yourself using your ag food, or you can use a FOSS approved advisor. After you've selected to transfer the entitlements, there is the opportunity to select Allow Entitlements Transfer Facilitators to transfer entitlements on my behalf. So if you click on that box, it will give you the option to add Entitlements Transfer Facilitator, ETF authorization, and a pop-up menu will then appear with a drop-down list of all the registered ETFs for you to select which one you want to use. Once you've selected that ETF, you can authorize them to transfer a number of entitlements into or out of your account. Excuse me. That ETF will need to be informed that they have been authorized to act on your behalf. DAFN doesn't notify them, the system doesn't automatically notify them. It's up to you to contact them and let them know that you are requesting their services. If you use an agent to do the ETF, you will have to sign an ETF authorization form. Because the transfer is being input by a third party in the form of the ETF, that form will still be witnessed by the agent. So just a reminder that the closing date is the 29th of May. If you change your BISS application before the 14th of June 2023, and that leads to you having insufficient land to use all your entitlements, then you can apply to transfer entitlements up to midnight on the 14th of June 2023. This is only available to farmers who can show that they've made a change to their BISS application by the 14th of June 2023, and that change has directly led to the need to transfer those entitlements. So just before I finish up, things that you'll need to check before the closing date: check your correspondence to see, have you received a lease reversion notification? Are you changing the registration details on your herd number? If so, you may need to use a TRN number rather than using the herd number to make any application for transfers, and you may need a transfer application that you might not think you need. And check your usage. Do you need any additional land or transfer of entitlements to make sure that your entitlements are fully used? Just got the contacts up there for both transfer of entitlements and the unused unduly section, as well as the help desk telephone number. And that's all from me. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I'm going to hand back to Fran for chairing those. Thanks very much.